the no-self of all phenomena, the key to ending unnecessary suffering. Have you ever, even for a brief moment, sincerely asked yourself, why is it that our lives, which could be a journey of peace and happiness, are often filled with unnecessary suffering, anxiety, and insecurity? Why do we keep getting stuck in cycles of frustration, fear, and loss, no matter how hard we try to control everything? According to the Buddha's teachings over 2,500 years ago, one of the deepest causes, even the root cause of most of the suffering we experience, does not originate from the outside world, from objective events or the actions of other people. Rather, it is due to a deep-seated belief, nurtured since beginningless time, that there is a self that is fixed, eternal, unchanging, independent, and capable of controlling everything. It is this clinging to the illusion of self that is the starting point of all attachments, greed, hatred, and delusion, leading to a long chain of suffering. Over 2,500 years ago, right under the Bodhi tree, Buddha Shakyamuni attained enlightenment and realized a great liberating truth, a truth about the nature of all existence, all things, all phenomena, including the so-called I or ego, are empty of a permanent self. This teaching is called Anatta. This is not an abstract, difficult philosophy, only for ascetics. On the contrary, it is a living truth, a profound insight into reality, and an invaluable key to help us escape the burden of our own attachments created by the illusion of self. Do you want to know how to free yourself from unnecessary suffering? Are you plagued by fears and worries, feelings of insecurity when faced with change or loss? The answer lies in the teachings of Anatta. Today, let's embark on a journey together to discover Anatta, one of the three marks of all things. What is its profound meaning? What does Anatta really say about our nature and the world around us? What does modern science say about the constant change of all things and the impermanence of the self? Is there any harmony between ancient wisdom and the most advanced scientific discoveries of the 21st century? And most importantly, how can we apply this profound teaching to our daily lives to find true peace, happiness, and freedom from unnecessary burdens? Take a deep breath, relax your mind, open your heart, and join me on this meaningful journey of inner discovery. Chapter 1. Understanding Anatta. The self is not fixed, just a constant flow. To understand the teachings of Anatta deeply, we first need to look directly at how we normally think and feel about ourselves. From birth, we are taught to identify, this is my name, this is my body, this is my memory, this is my personality, this is my emotions. We believe that there is a constant I, a separate, solid, and enduring entity that exists within, at the center of all experience. We name ourselves, remember our past, assign ourselves specific characteristics. I am hot-tempered, I am intelligent, and believe that this is our self, a core, unchanging thing over time. When a part of it changes or disappears, like when the body ages, when memory fades, when personality changes due to life events, or when a relationship we are attached to breaks down, we feel as if we are losing a part of ourselves, as if our self is being threatened, and pain, fear, and insecurity begin to arise violently. We try to cling to what is being lost, trying to hold on to the old image of ourselves, and that clinging creates suffering. Buddhism points out that the self we cling to is not permanent, is not an unchanging, independent entity, and is capable of controlling everything. The word Anatta in Pali means no fixed self, no permanent self, or no unchanging soul. The Buddha did not say that we are illusory or non-existent, or that we are without consciousness or emotions. He wants us to realize that the nature of life, of all existence, is not a separate, unchanging entity, but a continuous flow, a process that is always changing and interacting with countless other factors. According to the Samyutta Nikaya and other scriptures, the Buddha analyzed the self that we usually cling to as a temporary combination of 5 ever-changing factors, called the 5 aggregates. Aggregate means collection, mass, or composition. Parts. They are not me or mine forever. When we cling to any of these 5 aggregates as our true self, we create attachment, and that is what gives rise to suffering. Rupakanda, the physical body. This includes all the material elements that make up our bodies: bones, flesh, blood, skin, hair, breath, energy. Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and the physical objects we come into contact with. Your cells die and regenerate constantly. Your skin renews every few weeks. Your bones renew every few years. Your body today is not exactly the same as your body 10 years ago, or even 5 minutes ago at the cellular level. It is constantly changing, aging, getting sick, and eventually dying. When we cling to beauty, health, youth, this body is me or mine, then when old age comes, illness strikes, beauty fades, we suffer greatly. The fear of death also stems from attachment to the aggregate of form. Vedana-kanda, feeling, includes all the feelings that arise when the senses come into contact with objects: joy, sadness, pain, pleasure, unpleasantness, pleasantness, neutral. Feelings come and go constantly. You may feel happy one moment, then immediately turn to sadness, then anger, then indifference. No feeling is permanent or fixed. When we cling to a feeling of joy, wanting it to last forever, we suffer when it disappears. When we hate a feeling of pain, discomfort, and try to avoid it at all costs, we create more tension and dissatisfaction. Samakanda, perception, is the ability to perceive, distinguish objects that the senses come into contact with, e.g., this is the color blue, this is the sound of a bird, this is your face. Perception helps us name, categorize, and create concepts. Our perceptions are constantly changing with new experiences, knowledge, and perspectives. A person may see something differently after gaining more information. Your perception of a person may change after you learn more about them. When we cling to our ideas, concepts, and views as the absolute truth, as what I know, we suffer when they are challenged, changed, or proven wrong. Attachment to views creates arguments and conflicts. Sankarakanda, volition, habit, and action, includes all the mental factors that are intentional, purposeful, and motivate action: body, speech, mind. That is the intention, the will to do something, the habits that form, the mental tendencies, such as greed, anger, ignorance, non-greed, non-anger, non-delusion, and the karma that is created. Our will and habits are also constantly changing. You can change bad habits, develop good habits. Today's will may be different from tomorrow's will. The karma that you create is also a continuous flow of cause and effect, not a fixed entity. When we cling to a certain will, a certain habit as mine, or cling to a certain karma as destiny, we will suffer when we cannot carry out that will, when the habit is broken, or when we have to face the consequences of karma. Vyakanda, mind, awareness. It is the ability to perceive objects through the 6 senses. Eye consciousness sees colors, ear consciousness hears sounds, etc., and to perceive worldly dharmas through the mind consciousness. Consciousness is a continuous stream of awareness. Consciousness is also a flow, not static. It arises and ceases and changes moment by moment depending on the object of contact. It is not a fixed, unchanging soul or spirit. When we cling to this consciousness as the I who knows, the experiencer, we become afraid when it seems to disappear, in deep sleep, coma, or death, and we seek to control it, leading to stress and anxiety. Thus, anatta is not a negative philosophy that says you don't exist, or you have no value. It is an invitation to look directly at the truth about the impermanent, unfixed nature of all the components that make up that illusory I. By understanding and contemplating anatta, we can let go of unnecessary attachments to the 5 aggregates, live more lightly, more freely, and free from the burdens of fear, anxiety, and suffering. We do not dissolve, we are liberated from illusion. Chapter 2, Science, Profound Evidence of the Constant Change of All Things in the Self. When you hear about the doctrine of anatta, you may think, how can I believe in a teaching that is more than 2,500 years old, when the world has not yet had modern science. But the wonderful and convincing thing is that modern science, with its tools, the most advanced research methods have been deeply and thoroughly demonstrating the truth that Buddha realized. There is an amazing harmony between ancient wisdom and the latest scientific discoveries. Quantum physics, at the smallest level, matter is not fixed. In the early 20th century, physicists discovered that the microscopic world of matter is not like what we see at the macroscopic level. Elementary particles, electrons, protons, neutrons, etc., are not rigid and fixed marbles. They are in constant motion, existing as wave particles, and their position or energy can only be described by probability. The concept of quantum foam or quantum field suggests that space and time at the very small level are not fixed foundations, but are an ever-changing sea of energy, creating and destroying virtual particles. This coincides strikingly with the Buddha's teachings on impermanence. Everything is always changing, and anatta, no permanent, independent entity exists at the most fundamental level. Everything is a temporary combination of elements and energies that are constantly changing. Biology and neuroscience, the body and brain are constantly reorganizing. Your body, not a fixed entity from birth. The cells in your body die and regenerate constantly at an incredible rate. Your skin is completely renewed every 2 to 4 weeks. Your bones are completely renewed every 10 years. Even your heart and brain cells undergo some renewal. The you of today, physically, is not the you of 7 years ago. The body is a process, a constant flow of birth and death, with no unchanging physical self. The brain, once thought to be a fixed structure after adulthood, modern neuroscience has demonstrated the concept of neuroplasticity. Your brain is constantly changing, restructuring its neural connections, synapses, based on every experience, every thought, every behavior, and everything you learn. Learning a new language, playing a musical instrument, or even changing a small habit changes the physical structure of your brain. So my brain or my mind is not a fixed entity, it is a dynamic, ever-changing process. Modern psychology, consciousness and personality are in flux. Consciousness and experience. Modern cognitive psychologists and philosophers of mind also agree that consciousness is not a single soul residing in the head. Instead, it is a constantly changing flow of experiences, thoughts, emotions, and perceptions. The person you are today is not the person you were yesterday, or even 5 minutes ago, because your experiences, moods, and thoughts have changed. Personality, once thought to be fixed, developmental psychology research has shown that human personality, although it tends to be stable, can change and develop significantly throughout life, especially through important experiences, conscious learning, and even therapeutic intervention. Self-identity. Social psychology suggests that the sense of self we have is a complex social and psychological construct, made up of memories, expectations, social roles, and interactions with the environment. It is not an unchanging core. Modern science does not deny your existence or your consciousness. Rather, it helps us understand that existence is constantly changing, a dynamic flow, with no fixed essence that stands alone, unaffected by other factors. This is the wonderful agreement between the ancient wisdom of Buddhism and modern research, showing that the truth of anatta is not just a philosophy but also an accurate description of reality. Chapter 3. Applying anatta to reduce unnecessary suffering in daily life. After understanding the anatta doctrine deeply and being proven by modern science, the most important question that arises is, how can we apply this teaching to our daily lives to truly reduce unnecessary suffering? Suffering arises when we cling to a fixed I, when we cling to what belongs to me, when we fear loss, fear change. It is this clinging, not the event itself, that is the root cause of suffering. Let's look at the familiar experiences that we often face. Loss of loved ones, material things, status. Suffering due to ego, when we lose a loved one, a precious item, or a social status, the pain is real, it is natural. But that pain becomes persistent, prolonged suffering when we cling to old images, to memories, to the belief that everything must stay like this forever, or my ego has suffered too much loss. This clinging makes us sink into resentment, regret, and unable to accept reality. Understanding anatta helps us accept the impermanence of everything. A loved one may have left, but the love and beautiful memories remain. Material objects may be damaged, but their value is only temporary. Status may be lost, but the core value of the self does not lie there. When we understand that everything is in flux, all connections are temporary, we still live with the pain honestly, but we do not get stuck in it. We allow the pain to come, feel it, and then let it pass like a cloud, without holding on. Criticism, or being gossiped about. The pain of ego, criticism or gossip often hits directly at the self we have constructed, the perfect self, the respected self. When that happens, we feel attacked, deeply hurt, and react with anger, pride, or guilt. The pain lies not in the words themselves, but in our assigning negative meaning to them and clinging to a flawless image of me. If you know that me is just a collection of temporary elements, with nothing to hurt at its core, you can listen to the comments more objectively. You realize that criticism, the aggregate of perception, or the anger of others, their aggregate of action, are impermanent phenomena. You can choose not to hold on to that hot ember. You listen to learn if the criticism is valid, or ignore it if it is unfounded, without being deeply hurt. Your worth is not defined by what others say. Failure, mistakes, or not achieving goals. Suffering due to ego, when we lose a competition, fail a project, or make a mistake at work, we often attribute that failure to ourselves, to ourself. I am a failure, I am not good enough. This identification with the negative outcome creates shame, guilt, and the fear of trying again. If you see that failure or success are just temporary events, the results of conditions and efforts at a certain point in time, and do not define you as a whole, you will be able to bounce back. You realize that the failure self is a concept, perception aggregate, that you have assigned to yourself. By letting go of ego, you can learn from your mistakes, adjust your actions, skandhas, and move forward without the burden of a failed self. Aging and illness. Suffering due to ego, the fear of aging, physical weakness, and illness is one of the greatest human sufferings. This suffering comes from clinging to the aggregate of form, a youthful, healthy body, and denying its impermanence. We try to resist time, trying to hold on to our youthful appearance. Understanding that the aggregate of form is always changing, aging, and illness are natural laws, helps us accept this process more calmly. We still care for the body, but do not cling to it. We can find beauty in each stage of life, and focus on the development of the soul, which does not age. The Buddha taught us to practice mindfulness in every moment. When stress, pain, or any unpleasant emotion arises, stop, breathe deeply, and observe it. Ask yourself sincerely, is this suffering because I am clinging to a non-existent self, clinging to something as mine that is impermanent in nature? Through this, we see that everything comes and goes, emotions come and go, thoughts come and go, the body changes. And we are not those emotions, we are not those thoughts, we are not this body. They are just impermanent currents. When we are no longer in tune with by being with them, we find a vast space of inner peace where all emotions and thoughts can arise and pass away without disturbing us. Letting go of ego helps us reduce anger, greed, fear, leaving the mind more peaceful and clear. Chapter 4: Illustrative Stories and Profound Lessons. To further clarify the doctrine of anatta, let us consider a famous illustrative story in the Buddhist scriptures, the dialogue between King Milinda and the monk Nagasena. During a meeting, King Milinda, a Greek king of Indian origin, asked the monk Nagasena, a great arahant, a core question. Venerable Nagasena, if there is no permanent self, then who is the practitioner? Who is the one who is liberated from suffering? Who is the one who accumulates karma? If there is no permanent self, then is everything nothingness? The monk Nagasena smiled and calmly replied, "By what means did you come here?" King Milinda replied, "Venerable sir, I came here in a chariot." Nagasena continued, "What is that chariot, your majesty? Is it the wheel? Or the axle? Or the frame? Or the seat? Or the other parts?" King Milinda was puzzled and replied, "No, your majesty. The chariot is not the wheel alone, not the axle alone, not the frame alone, not the seat alone. The chariot is simply the general name given to the combination of all those parts when they are put together in a functional way." Nagasena smiled triumphantly, "So too, your majesty. The higher self that your majesty is asking about is simply the general name given to the combination of the 5 aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, when they function together temporarily. There is no independent, permanent, unchanging I outside or inside those 5 aggregates." The lesson of this story is profound. Like a chariot, our self is not a single, fixed entity, but a collection of elements that are constantly changing and interacting. When the parts of a chariot are taken apart, the chariot no longer exists as a chariot. Similarly, when the 5 aggregates are no longer combined or changing, the self that we cling to also dissolves. Do you recognize any selves that bind you in your daily life? Is it the self who is the director, so when demoted, it is miserable? Is it the self who is the perfect person, so when mistakes are made, it is ashamed and afraid? Is it the self who has youthful skin, so when wrinkles appear, it is anxious? Is it the self who has a single political/religious belief, so when others have different views, it is angry and hateful? Is it that the self always needs to be loved and recognized, so when it is not, it feels empty and insecure? It is these social roles, these fixed views, these rigid beliefs about the self, things belonging to the aggregates of perception, mental formations, or materiality, that create the illusory selves. When we cling to them as our true nature, we create invisible chains. Let go of the ego, let go of identifying with external roles, views, or images, and you will find true freedom. This freedom is not irresponsible. On the contrary, when you are no longer burdened by the illusory self, you will live more authentically, be more responsible for your actions, and be able to love and give unconditionally, because you do not do those things to feed a selfish self, but out of compassion and wisdom. Lighting the lamp of non-self wisdom. In short, the Buddha's teaching of non-self and modern scientific evidence both point to a core truth about the nature of existence. There is no fixed, permanent self that exists independently. Everything is an impermanent flow of elements that are constantly changing and interacting. What we call is just a temporary combination of the 5 aggregates. Non-self is not a teaching to become pessimistic, indifferent, or deny your existence. On the contrary, it is the key to liberation from a great deal of unnecessary suffering, suffering that arises from clinging to the illusion of a fixed self. When you let go of your ego, you are freed from the fear of loss, the anger of criticism, the disappointment of failure, and the insecurity of change. Start today by applying this teaching to your daily life, through the practice of mindfulness and reflection. Observe your breath. Start by paying attention to your breath. The breath goes out, the breath comes in. You will see that the breath is also impermanent, always changing. You do not have complete control over it, and it is not you. Observe your emotions and thoughts. When a strong emotion, joy, sadness, anger, fear, or a certain train of thought arises, do not react or identify with it. Simply observe, this is sadness arising, this is the thought of failure. You realize that they come and go, and you are not those emotions or thoughts. They belong to the aggregates of feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, and are not your core nature. Ask yourself when you are suffering, when you feel anxious, afraid, or hurt, stop and honestly ask yourself, is this suffering because I am clinging to an illusory self, or clinging to something as mine that is impermanent in nature? Practice letting go. Whenever you notice clinging, try to loosen your grip. Like opening your hand to let sand flow through. It is a process that requires patience and practice. By practicing this, you will gradually see through the illusion of a fixed self. You will see that you are not a name, not a body, not an emotion or a thought. You are the vast, still space where all of these things appear and disappear. Free yourself from the invisible bonds created by ego clinging, to live a lighter, more peaceful, happier, and more fulfilled life in each present moment. This is your power, a gift from the wisdom of the Buddha. Thank you for listening and joining me on this profound journey of discovery. See you in the next video.